I recently got to eat something awesome. It was this cactus aguachile at a restaurant called Maude here in Los Angeles. And I spoke with Chef Osiel about how it's made, and I learned a bunch of fascinating things about it and the restaurant that I'm now going to share with you.
The dish, we call it nopales at the restaurant. It makes your palate wake up excited for what's coming next. There's cactus, jicama, avocado, and the sauce, which is an aguachile of cucumber. This is one of those dishes that takes the longest to prep that everyone is making. So Katya is super creative, very detail oriented. Then there's Luke Wright, very passionate of what he does, and he likes to do things right.
Yeah.
Like his last name. There you go. Roberto is in charge of that dish, so that's on his station, on Garmanjay's station. We all come together to just make it happen.
So here are 9 nerdy details I loved about this dish I ate. The first thing I loved is that the restaurant creates these little plastic stencils to aid in the cutting of the dish's shapes so that everything is as precise and even as possible.
When we were developing the dish, I didn't want to just put cactus because I've eaten cactus in squares. I've eaten strips of cactus or just whole cactus grilled. So I wanted to do something different with it. And we tried different shapes, and the diamond was the one that I really liked.
The stencils are also made by reusing these sorts of plastic lids to create a very clean and sharp defined shape. So the next thing I found especially fascinating is that the brine for the cactus is a very specific time, like down to the minute. And the restaurant experimented with different lengths of time to figure out what is the best amount for this dish.
It's brine for 20 minutes in a toasted spice solution. We probably did from 15 to 30 minutes on increments of 2 minutes. We did all the time. Yeah.
Really?
So 20 minutes is enough for it to lose some of the slime that cactus naturally has, and the salt to penetrate the cactus enough to give it a little bit of flavor. So 25 minutes was too much. It started to get salty, and then it wilted really quickly. Less than 20 minutes, it just didn't do anything at all.
So to match the cactus, there's also jicama cut into a diamond shape. And what I loved is that the restaurant chooses to use a deli slicer to cut the jicama.
So jicama, it was something that I grew up eating, never paying a lot of attention to it. It was just there. It's a component that it's sweet and crunchy, which is something that you don't expect from something that grows under the ground without being starchy. Because if you think like a potato, there is some sweetness, but it doesn't really turn sweet until you cook it. Jicama is sweet, crunchy, and refreshing as it's coming out of the ground.
Why do you use a deli slicer and not like a mandolin?
Because it's so fragile, if you don't apply the same force every single time, depending on the jicama, then it'll snap, it'll break.
There's a million ways to slice something, but to pick a deli slicer for this radishy thing, it's an interesting choice. So the sauce for the dish is an aguachile.
So aguachile is agua and chile, water and chile, right? That's the basis of it. Usually in Sinaloa, we use it to mix in seafood, usually raw shrimp. This one's made with cucumber water for the sweetness of the cucumber.
So next point, in making the aguachile, one bitter cucumber can throw off the whole thing.
Each cucumber needs to be tasted before it goes into the sauce. That way we're ensuring that we're not getting a bad cucumber on the sauce, because it'll just become bitter.
Is the cucumber peeled?
No. So we want that chlorophyll from the skin to give color to the water.
Because a lot of the times in recipes, people are like, you have to peel your cucumber because that's where the bitterness comes from. But really, it's not every cucumber is the same, and you might get a cucumber with a delicious skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just peeling vegetables in general is because people don't want to, it's a texture thing.
Yeah. Another interesting detail is that the aguachile is blended for a specific amount of time.
We blend the raw shallot, the spices, the cilantro, and the jalapeno, 25 seconds, then off. The spiciness of the jalapeno and the shallot just overwhelmed everything else.
With more blending?
With more blending.
It's something that I've tried to make in the past, and now explains a lot about why it came out the way it did. The next interesting point is regarding the dishware used at the restaurant.
Maude was opened in 2014. It's Chef Curtis's first restaurant. It's named after his paternal grandmother, paying homage to Chef Curtis's grandmother and her beautiful platewares. We use all vintage, reused plates.
And I imagine that when you're assembling a specific dish, and this one in particular, you're looking at the intricacies of the dish that you're going to use and how it will visually match with the components?
So the cactus dish is appealing of itself, right? So the actual plate, it can't have too much visual noise. So when you're looking at it, it should be clean. The size of the shape was 1 centimeters because the actual plate at the time, it was enough for it to fill with 3 shapes in the plate.
So they have to consider, okay, we're getting these dishes from out in the world, we're sourcing them from estate sales, from antique stores, and then we're going to make the scale of the dish suit the dish that it's being served in, both visually and how it will function when eaten. The next point, the crackers look like cactus.
So the cracker, it's a toasted coriander, sesame seed, and spinach. When you eat aguachile, you eat it with tostadas. So it came from that. So this cracker adds a little bit of a textural component to it. And for me, it just reminds me of when I'm eating aguachile. We do a spinach puree for the color.
Are there spices in the cactus as well?
There's toasted coriander.
Yeah.
It's beautiful coriander. Toasted and then grinded. Very, very fine as we can go. And then we pass it through a Japanese tammy, which is super, super fine tammy, to only get the most finest grind of the coriander. So that nuttiness of the toasted coriander with the super bright sauce, it just complements well. And then a parsley oil in the dough itself. So when it cooks, the spinach will actually lose a little bit of its color, but the oil won't. So it just remains bright green.
The next nerdy detail is that in order to achieve that cactus look, all of the sesame seeds on the cracker are arranged with their tips pointing in the same direction.
When we first started, the sesame seeds were arranged nicely, but it didn't look quite right until we figured out that the sesame seed tip should be facing down and at an angle. That way it looks in perfect order.
Yeah.
And then after that, we figured out, okay, what if we do it in a particular order? That way it's at an angle and every one of them looks the same.
Yeah. And what is the effect? That it looks more like?
It looks more like an actual cactus.
It's also funny that the cracker, which is not made with cactus, looks so much like a cactus, but the cactus that's in the dish looks nothing like cactus. Maude is a restaurant that takes its wine very seriously, so there's also a specific wine that is selected for this dish. That's not super unique, but the interesting thing is that these wines are stored in a wine loft, which is also where you go after your meal to enjoy your dessert. And it is a functioning wine storage room.
Yes, 100%. So during service, if someone orders a bottle of wine, the sommelier has to come up here and grab a bottle of wine off of the wall.
Yeah, and that's also why the environment is the way that it is, right?
Yes, so there's 3,000 bottles of wine in here that need to be stored properly. To be able to store that and make it a functioning room, it's quite a cold room.
Yeah.
So there are blankets here for the guest because we need to keep it cold. It's dark because the wine doesn't do well in the super lighted room. So it's completely functioning, it's made for that. We just want people to experience it while you're here.
So, how did the dish taste? Pretty great. It is really bright, acidic, but still very, a subtle sweetness from all the different things. And the cactus has a very interesting texture. It's almost like the sort of soft give that an avocado has, but it still has more chew to it. And the aguachile itself is it just makes my mouth salivate when I think about tasting it again. It really sort of evolved across my mouth over the few seconds that it was there. Well, those are the nerdy details that I loved learning about this dish. I hope you enjoyed them too. It's one thing to taste something that tastes amazing. It's another thing entirely to be amazed by the things that go into making something taste that way. And that's what I especially love. So, thanks for watching.